Pittsburgh Steelers just got some bad news when it comes to their Week 3 matchup versus the Los Angeles Chargers. I'll talk about what that news is here in just a second right here on Steelers Talk. Also, new Steelers wide receiver trade targets to discuss here on the show that we have not discussed on this program before. All right, so we'll get to that in our second segment today. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. We're going to be getting into all this great Steelers content throughout the day today. Now, before we get into it, though, I do want to kind of plug my X account here. If you guys want to get a bunch of NFL Steelers content every single day, I post Steelers news updates every single day, channel updates, all that great stuff. You can find me at Jack_Sperry. And then we actually have an official Steelers Talk IG page now. It's at Steelers CS on IG. So if you want daily Steelers news updates, channel updates on IG as well, you guys can find us at Steelers CS. I greatly appreciate you guys. And if you give me a follow here, I'll greatly appreciate it. And actually, earlier today, I put out my first Whiteboard Wednesday of the 2024 NFL season, breaking down the QB screen run option. I even mentioned how it can help the Pittsburgh Steelers offense with Justin Fields go to the next level. So if you want to see my first Whiteboard Wednesday of the season, you guys can go check me out on Twitter at Jack_Sperry or at Steelers CS for the official Steelers Talk IG page. So the bad news for the Pittsburgh Steelers here is that Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh said to the media today that he expects quarterback Justin Herbert to play this week after injuring his ankle last week against the Carolina Panthers. Now, to be clear, okay, I am not saying I am rooting for Justin Herbert to be injured or that I think it's a good thing that he's injured or anything like that. All right, I'm just speaking from a football perspective. Obviously, if Justin Herbert is not on the field on Sunday, that exponentially increases the chances that the Pittsburgh Steelers will win and go to 3-0 on the season. Okay, so that's the only reason why it's bad news that Justin Herbert looks like he is going to be able to play on Sunday. However, okay, and although it is bad news to hear that Justin is probably going to be playing against the Steelers on Sunday, I do think that because he is dealing with that ankle injury and he's not starting the week out practicing, and it's going to be kind of limited throughout the week, I do think he's going to be less than 100%. I don't think he's going to be able to move the way that he wants to move, especially outside of the pocket as a playmaker, and we know that this Pittsburgh Steelers pass rush can really get after the quarterback. So what that limited mobility could mean for this Steelers team is that it could actually be to the Steelers' benefit here. TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbert, all of these guys are going to be able to get after Justin Herbert. And because of some potentially stunted mobility on Herbert's part, I do think that this Pittsburgh Steelers pass rush is going to have yet another ravenous week. And because of that, I'm actually going to update my score prediction. I actually put out a preview of this matchup earlier today. We filmed it on Monday during the Steelers Talk live show, and I had the Chargers winning this one 21-20. I'm actually going to change it now to 23-13 because I do think that Herbert's injury definitely changes the dynamic of this football game. I think that his inability to kind of get outside the pocket, be a playmaker, is going to make a big difference in this football game. And I do think the Steelers pass rush is once again going to dominate in the home opener here in Week 3. So let me know down there in the comments section, what is the percent chance Pittsburgh wins this game if Herbert plays the game? All right, so let me know down there in the comments section. I'll probably put the Steelers' chances of winning this week with Herbert on the field probably at a 55 to 60% chance. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. And when that happens, give me a percent chance the Steelers win if Herbert is on the field. So now let's get into some new wide receiver trade targets to talk about here on Steelers Talk. These are guys we have not talked about on the channel before, so some fresh trade targets to discuss at the wide receiver position today. First one up, Carolina Panthers receiver Adam Thielen. Now, no, Deontay Johnson is not on this list. The Steelers got rid of him for a reason. They are not going to want to bring him back, so he will not be on today's list. But his running mate there in the wide receiver room in Carolina, Adam Thielen, is a possibility. He is getting older, 34 years old, 6'2", 195 pounds, so he is a bigger receiver, very reliable hands, good route runner generally. Does have 2 years left on his current deal, and he's relatively inexpensive. $5.5 million is his base salary in 2024, and if you trade for him close to the deadline, that comes at a prorated rate, which means it's going to be less than that. And then in 2025, it's only $4 million. So if you bring in Adam Thielen to be your number 2 receiver, he's a very affordable option with a ton of NFL experience. He's played in a lot of big games in this league with the Minnesota Vikings. Not many big games with the Carolina Panthers, if we're being honest, but he would definitely be playing in big games with the Pittsburgh Steelers if traded. Now, personally, I'm not sure Thielen is a great fit, okay? And the reason why I say that is because Thielen's not really a separator down the field. He's more of a short to intermediate route running, tough hands catcher type guy, a good red zone weapon, that sort of thing. But the Steelers have made it abundantly clear by their behavior and the guys that they have targeted that they want guys that can separate down the field. And that's not really what Thielen brings to the table, in my opinion. And they also want guys that can run block as well. And that's not really in Thielen's description either. I think that, he used to be a really good run blocker with the Minnesota Vikings, but then, over the last several seasons, he's kind of dipped in that regard as a run blocker as he's gotten older and his athleticism has waned. You take a look at his run blocking grades per PFF, just a 2-game sample in 2024, but it's not very good. Same grade in 2023 with the Carolina Panthers, and then in 2022, it was definitely dipping as well. So he's not the best run blocker. He doesn't really separate down the field. And that's what kind of the two things that the Steelers want out of their receivers in this current model with Arthur Smith as their offensive coordinator. I do think Thielen's trade value is about a 5th-round pick, maybe. Like maybe you trade a 5th-round pick for Thielen and then a 6th-round pick, kind of do like a pick swap kind of deal. He is getting older. His athleticism has waned, and honestly, his athleticism and his shiftiness and his long speed have never been great assets of his. So I'm not sure if he's a fantastic fit, guys. I do think that he may get traded somewhere, but I don't think it's going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, coming up here, we do have more Steelers wide receiver trade targets to discuss, but before we get into that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Game Time, which is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater in your area. And guys, we all know that experiencing a sporting event, especially a football game, live is unlike anything you can get from watching the game on your couch. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The way that it works, guys, you go to an event on the Game Time app that you want to go to. Let's say it's like the home opener for the Pittsburgh Steelers or something like that. Any Steelers game this year, you just go into that game, you select Game Time Picks, the filter on there, and it automatically filters all the tickets in their database through a special algorithm that shows you the best deals with the best prices. It's absolutely fantastic, and it really does save you a bunch of time when you're looking for tickets to any event you want to go to. I also love that Game Time provides the lowest price guarantee on any ticket to any event, all in pricing, so you don't get slapped with crazy fees at checkout. And then also, if you're a procrastinator like me, you like to get your tickets last minute, they have flash deals, so you can get even cheaper tickets the closer you wait to game time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS. It's one word, all caps, CHATSPORTS down there in the bottom right of your screen right now for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, it's just for that first purchase. Create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. And we got another Carolina Panther to talk about on today's edition of Steelers Talk, and it's Jonathan Mingo, who was just drafted recently by the Carolina Panthers out of Ole Miss, kind of a bigger receiver, and I think that he's a better fit for what the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking for in terms of a bigger downfield threat. Now, obviously you got George Pickens as your bigger downfield threat, but remember, the Steelers wanted to bring in Mike Williams this offseason, so they were perfectly fine having two very big, very strong, very good run-blocking receivers as their number one and number two receiver combo. Still has 3 years left on his deal, still on his rookie contract, and he is big, 6'2", 220, and he runs like a freaking deer. All right, you look at his relative athletic score, a 9.86, great size, great 40-yard dash time at a 4.46, had a really good 10-yard split as well, so he is definitely explosive right off the block. I love Jonathan Mingo's deep ball football threat ability. And, I think that with Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers, he hasn't really been able to show that off to this point in his career. So listen, man, I do think Carolina may pass on trading a guy like Jonathan Mingo because they are a rebuilding team. They need as many foundational offensive weapon building blocks as they can get. And Mingo is still a very promising young player. So I'm not sure if Carolina would be as willing to trade Mingo as a guy like Adam Thielen or Deontay Johnson before the deadline. But if he is made available and the Steelers can get him for a decent price, I would definitely be interested. Now, coming up next here, my favorite new wide receiver target for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know how gettable he is, but Alec Pierce from the Indianapolis Colts. All right, I really like his skill set. I think that Arthur Smith would absolutely love with his fit in his offense. I think he'd be a really good complement to George Pickens as a number 2 receiver. Take a look at his profile here. He's 24 years old. He's got good size, over 210 pounds, really fast receiver as well. He's got 2 years left on his deal. And again, he's still on his rookie contract, so he's not expensive whatsoever. Get 2 more years of affordable play out of Alec Pierce. So you'd pretty much get a year and a half out of him if you trade for him close to the deadline at a really, really low price. And for somebody that is this inexpensive, he is a really good football player, in my opinion, man. I think he fits the Arthur Smith mold. He is big. He can run block. He separates down the field. That's what he's known as. He's a downfield threat. He's got a big catch radius. And you look at his relative athletic score, not far off from Jonathan Mingo, a 9.83, a 4.41 40-yard dash. This guy can fly at 211 pounds, man. So if the Colts make him available, definitely think the Steelers should be taking a look. And you take a look at the fast start that Alec Pierce has gotten off to here for the Indianapolis Colts there in Indy. An 82.8 receiving grade, which is 6th. He's 6th in receiving yards right now. He's currently tied for 1st in total receiving touchdowns. And he's 5th in yards per route run, so he's very efficient as well. Now, because he has been getting off to a very sharp start here in 2024, and he's still young, all these different things, I do think it's going to cost at least a day 2 pick to get Alec Pierce in your building. It might honestly cost you more than this to get Alec Pierce in your building if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. And although I would love to add him to this football team, I think that he'd be an awesome fit. I think that he's got a very bright future in this league. After that fast start, I don't know if Indy's going to want to let him go. They did draft Adonai Mitchell out of Texas in this year's NFL draft, but honestly, man, why not just let Alec Pierce play out the rest of his contract and then have Mitchell slide in there, after Pierce's contract is over with, right? So I do think that Pierce is a very good player. Maybe down the road he'll become a Pittsburgh Steeler, but I do think because of that fast start, I think Indy's going to hold on to him. So make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon. Holy schnitzel! If you want to add a wide receiver to this Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver room, we know we got George Pickens, but who's going to be number 2? Will it be Van Jefferson this year? Is it Calvin Austin III? Will Roman Wilson really step up for this team this year? I guess we'll have to see. But if you want to add a receiver to the Steelers receiver room, click that thumbs up icon right now. Now, this one I'm less enthusiastic about, Olamide Zaccheaus from the Washington Commanders. And the reason why I'm adding Zaccheaus to this list here is because he has that Arthur Smith connection. All right, and I do think he's gettable from the Commanders, a team that's rebuilding, trying to accrue draft capital. He's 27 years old. He's a little bit short, but he is kind of thicker for a shorter guy. He played with Arthur Smith for 2 seasons in Atlanta, so he does have that connection. He does have a fit inside this offense with Arthur Smith, and we know that Smith has his guys. And if the Steelers said, "Hey, you want us to go get Olamide Zaccheaus for a day 3 pick?" I don't think necessarily he would say no, especially with the way Van Jefferson and CA3 have started the season off. And if Roman Wilson comes in, doesn't play all that well, I do think Zaccheaus could be an option for this team. Had a really good preseason with the Washington Commanders. Really impressed in their training camp. A lot of rave reviews for him. Started the season as the number 2 receiver, but now the Commanders have brought in Noah Brown, so it seems like Zaccheaus is further down the totem pole, and I do think they'd take a day 3 pick in exchange for Zaccheaus. Now, I do think this would be underwhelming because, he's not like a great option, right? I do think he's kind of more along the lines of a Van Jefferson or a Calvin Austin III, maybe just a step above those guys. And if the Steelers made a move for a guy like this, I'd say, why are we doing this? We already got some guys like Olamide Zaccheaus. Let's go get somebody of a higher quality. And honestly, I'd rather just go with Roman Wilson as the number 2 receiver on this Pittsburgh Steelers team. team. I can see why the Steelers might be interested in a guy like Olamide Zaccheaus, but Roman Wilson, he fits the mold of what the Steelers want in their number 2 receiver. I mean, I know he's short, but he blocks his ass off in the run game. He separates down the field. He's a really, really crisp route runner. He can get open in third down situations for Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. I just think that he's going to come in, and even though he didn't really have a lot of time in training camp, and he didn't have any time in the preseason, and he hasn't played with this team the first 2 weeks, I do think he's going to eventually get there, and he's going to be a really good piece for this team down the stretch as this team's number 2 receiver, not only for this season, but for many seasons to come. I think George Pickens and Roman Wilson are going to wreck this league in the years to come. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comments section. Which wide receiver, if any, do you want the Steelers to pursue by the trade deadline this year? Do you want Michael Thomas? Do you want DK Metcalf? Do you want Tyler Lockett? Which receiver would you love to see the Steelers get? Personally, I would love to see this team add Courtland Sutton. I think he'd be a really nice number 2 option, especially if Russell Wilson is your quarterback at that point in time. But there's some pretty decent options out there, and if Roman Wilson plays well, maybe you don't need to get a receiver, but you never know what's going to happen here between now and the trade deadline. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we will be getting you guys coverage on the Pittsburgh Steelers every single day, going over the latest rumors, going over the latest news, previewing every single game, and of course we go live 3 times a week with the best damn Steelers fan community here on YouTube. It's 100% free to click that subscribe button, so if you love the Steelers, you want daily coverage, make sure you click that subscribe button right now.